Breaths. Slow, slow, deep breaths. You know, out in your mouth, because at the minute you look. Hi everybody, I'm just letting everybody in.
Hey guys.
For some reason I've got a waiting room right now. Recorded. Hi Kieran.
Hello.
Hi Raf.
Well, there's a lot of people. Hello.
Hi everyone.
How you doing?
Right, I'm just checking to make sure we've got everybody.
Wow, there's loads of us today. Awesome.
Give it to around 3 minutes past just for people to join.
I think that's probably best. Yeah. How's everyone doing? Is everyone okay?
Oh, good.
Right.
Good evening to you. We're in Jerusalem as a great milestone is reached across the board.
I went to the Cannabis Roadshow yesterday with the Itch was running. It was good.
Down in Brighton.
Yeah. It was good. I got very medicated.
Was there a good turnout?
It was a good turnout. Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, really nice to meet Ish and Shazia and Sal in person.
Yeah, great stuff.
Good evening, everyone.
Hiya, Sam.
We've got a few
I'm
more.
hiding tonight. I've got a cold or something suspiciously COVID-like, so I'll be lurking in the background.
Mostly civilians killed by Hamas.
We've got someone on the stream called Ben at HCC. Got a lot of background noise coming over your mic.
I'm just checking through the list just to see if everyone could just mute themselves, that would be great. I think we're going to go with the hand system. So that'll be for later on when people can ask questions, they can use the hand system. But I think everybody's in now, more or less. So I think we should have everybody with us. So today we've got attending on the MCPA third industry rep meeting. We have Trisha Cassidy. I don't know if Trisha's here. The MD of Aurora Europe. I can see Sonal's here. Is Trish?
Sarah, Trisha's just doing an update on her computer, so she'll be hopefully a couple of minutes. She won't be too late.
No problem, no problem. Do you want us to wait for her?
If they have any questions for Trisha, yes, please, because she is the MD. So great, thanks, Sarah.
Wait a few minutes for Trisha, that's fine. So in the meantime, we've got Sonal Patel. She's the education manager for Aurora. We've also got Hamish Clegg, the CEO of Hilltop Leaf. We've got Tim Henley, the UK manager for Cassidy and Lumir. And we've also got Micael Zollmann, the CEO of Medcan, returning. So thank you everybody for coming today and giving us some of your time. We've got quite a few people, so it looks like it should be a very good meeting today, fingers crossed. So we'll just wait for Trisha, and then we can get the ball rolling. Have you got anything that you need to sort, Ralph, while we wait?
No, not at all. I was just making myself familiar with the questions we've had so far. So we've got about a dozen through that have been left on the Discord for the past week or so to get us started. And then once we're through them, we'll open the floor up to patient questions live on the stream.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to leave everyone here waiting in silence for Trisha to appear. I'm sure she'll be here any minute.
Yeah,
But for the moment, should we kick things off, Sarah? I
Yeah,
don't think there's anything in the first couple of questions that she's going to be able to answer directly.
yeah, okay. So we can split the questions if you want, Ralph. So give us both a breather.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll do up to 6 or 7 and then you take the rest. Is that okay?
Yeah, all good.
Right, so we've got a couple of questions in terms of wider ranges to the patient experience and current model with regulatory changes likely required. What are industry members' thoughts on? Number 1, bricks and mortar premises and dispensaries, potential for on-site prescribers, and the ability for patients to inspect products prior to purchase and/or collect locally. So that's the first question. Don't know if anyone would like to take that one. I just wanted to also add that we've also got, I think, Pierre from Grow here as well. He's going to jump in and answer a few questions later on as well.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, to throw that to our guest today, if anyone wants to answer a question on could we see brick and mortar stores in the future, go on, Hamish. I see you with your hand up.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all and thanks for joining. Yeah, the bit of a difference between bricks and mortar dispensaries and bricks and mortar clinics. There are some bricks and mortar clinics in existence. We work with one of them called CB1 who are in Leicester, where it's possible to see someone face to face. Dispensaries as well. On the bricks and mortar thing for kind of on-site prescribing, the way the current model works, as many of you probably know, is you get your medicine in the post. In the event, anybody can get their prescription delivered to their local pharmacy. It's absolutely not a problem at all, and all the clinics should give that as an option. The only problem with doing that is it probably prolongs the time it's going to take you to get your medicine, because what will have to happen is the medicine will be sent from a wholesaler, like myself, to the pharmacy, because the pharmacies typically buy it from us. Your on-site pharmacy, it will then have to be processed through all of that on-site pharmacy and then sent off and shipped out to you, the patient. The way most of the clinics and pharmacies work at the moment is we work very closely hand in hand. So Pierre's on the call, and his 2 businesses, the pharmacies kind of based inside the wholesaler. For us, we have a pharmacy on our site, so we literally walk across the road, well, across the car park from one building to another with a product and give it straight to the pharmacy who get it ready straight for the patients. So the answer is yeah, you can do it, but it might make things a little bit longer. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, fair remarks there, Hamish.
Do you know what I
realised there was one bit of the question as well that I didn't answer, which is, can people inspect the products prior to purchase and collect locally? Another 2 parts. If you were to inspect it prior to purchase, you'd have to break the seal. So it's be a little bit like wanting to have a look at a yogurt in a supermarket before you bought it, or a pot of jam. You break the seal, then it's no good to anyone else, and you say, no, I don't want that. And then there's a product that can't be resold ever, because regulation says that you can't, sell unsealed products. So it's very much done that way in the interest of patient protection, so that when you get your medicine through the post that nobody has touched it since it left a GMP facility, which is a very clean environment, an environment where your medicine is prepared by people in rubber gloves, hair nets, beard nets, air pressure controlled rooms, some pretty significant investment into making sure that people get a clean medicine when it comes to them. And then the last bit of the question was, can you collect your medicine locally? It is possible, especially if you have it sent to a local pharmacy. But again, it can take a little bit longer. It depends if the clinic and the pharmacy are working close together in proximity. If there's an actual bricks and mortar pharmacy you can go to, but it tends not to be possible unless it's a high street pharmacy.
Yeah, fair remarks there, Hamish. Tim's got his hand up at the moment. Just after we take Tim's response, we're going to go right back to introductions, considering Trisha's now here.
Yeah, new introductions. Now,
yeah. Tim, did you have some remarks?
Oh yeah, hi everyone. I'm Tim Henley. I'm with Canon. Yes, I do. The current state of play, as Hamish has kind of pointed out, is very compliant and regulation rules. But one of the things that the medical cannabis industry has been good at is kind of navigating the regulation to find pathways. Now, you've got consumption rooms that are coming along where people are using their medicine in social environments, which is actually good to the benefit of those people. Now, an extension of that is having a doctor on site. An extension of that is having a pharmacy within the area that it is. With electronic prescribing, currently, medical cannabis is only available through a paper trail. A doctor has to issue an FP10 prescription, a private prescription, and there was questions about photocopies of that. The government have just kind of changed their guidance. And the reason all of that is because of a doctor called Harold Shipman, who used controlled drugs to kill a lot of people. So it was decided that a more secure way of doing things was to actually make sure that there was a signed piece of paper. Now, the current regulation is, in theory, going to change. There's going to be a pilot on it. When that happens with electronic prescribing, I can see all of those things that have been outlined in that question number 1 coming about. So it's a question of time, and it's a question of working out the way that things are going to move forward. But definitely, I see that as a future.
Excellent response there, Tim. And just to add as well, there's 2 different types of licensing for pharmacy. So some pharmacies are licensed for distance selling and some are licensed for collections. So you can't just ask any pharmacy if you can pick up in person. You need to check what they're specifically able to do themselves. Okay, so should we swap back round to introductions, Sarah, and get everyone to introduce themselves?
Yeah, we can do that, please. So if we start with Trisha, I don't you think I saw you pop in now? Hope you're okay.
I'm so sorry about that.
Don't worry.
First of all, we never as a company use Zoom. We're always on Teams. And I've just got a new computer. So I was about to go in and it just said I needed to upgrade. So that's what was happening with me. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm Trisha Cassidy. I'm the Managing Director for Aurora, UK and Ireland. Somebody's put me down as Europe. I'm not involved. Well, I do work with Europe, but I'm not responsible for Europe. So it's the UK and Ireland for me. Nice to meet everybody. And I work with Sonal.
So yeah, passing on to Sonal then. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, I work for Aurora UK with Trisha. I covered the kind of clinical medical education, so working with the clinics and the patient group. So it's a great opportunity to meet you all today for me. Thank you.
Fantastic. Hamish, do you want to introduce yourself? Or Hamish? Which one is it? If you'd like to
Yeah, it's Hamish. Hamish, yeah.
There we go.
Well, it's Scottish name, but I haven't lived in Scotland for many years, but I guess I can make up for it because my business is based in Scotland, in South Scotland. My name's Hamish Clegg. I founded Hilltop Leaf in 2019. We've been working very hard to try and create UK domestic supply of medical cannabis for people. It's been quite a long journey. We've got the various licenses that's taken a lot of investment, time and effort to get to. One of which allows us to wholesale. So we're delighted to be able to work with other suppliers across the world to access medical cannabis for people in a safe way, and trying to make sure it's a smooth, good experience without breaching any of the rules. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks for that, Hamish. And Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
I get 2 bites of the cherry. How exciting! Yeah, I'm Tim Henley. I am. I've been in the medical cannabis industry starting from 2016. I was in CBD first of all, then moved into medical cannabis. I worked for Namaste Technologies, which was the biggest vaporizer seller in the UK. That's kind of my passion, vaporizers. I moved into medical cannabis with Canim. Where I am the UK commercial manager. We're a cannabis company that's focused on science and actually understanding how cannabis works and all the kind of ancillary things that go with that, and we're spending a lot of money setting up some research projects in the UK. And we're one of the few companies that really have a global passion for understanding the impact of cannabis across so many different peoples. One of the things you'd see is most of the people that are kind of researched are all white middle-aged men like me. We're actually looking at different things.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Tim. And joining us once again, Micael.
Hi everyone, I'm Micael Zollmann. I am one of the founders and the CEO of Medcan. We are a fully licensed, fully indoor cultivator based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And we have a flower called Isando, which is prescribed in the UK.
Hey, thanks for that. Sarah, passing it back to you for the next question.
Yep. Okay. So the next question was kind of linked in with that one, but it said the regulatory process changes to remove such specific prescriptions. For example, could a doctor prescribe high THC flower up to a certain quantity with patients free to source products as appropriate, potentially with guidance from a dispensing pharmacist?
So we'll throw this open to our panel. Just before we do, Australia went through a process a couple of years ago whereby there was scripts written with, let's say, loose terminology. It might say cannabis, sativa, 18 to 22%, and a pharmacist could then prescribe any product within that criteria. This was actually shut down by the medicines regulator in Australia, a government organization called TGA, and it was shown to be non-compliant over there. From everything from everyone I've spoken to over here, that's not something we can do either. We need to write prescriptions for specific products, and they can't be for general ones. I don't know if anyone else has any further comments there.
So I've just got a comment that I know that in Israel, a doctor writes a prescription for X amount of THC, and then the patient is able to go to the pharmacy and get anything up to that amount of THC. So if a doctor writes a script for 20% THC, the patient can select anything from 0 to 20% of THC. And it's not specifically the product, it's the pharmacy that can then say to the patient, well, these are the products that we've got available.
Thank you for that. And the reason I've been told it wasn't able to be done over here was because it was passing over part of the prescribing decision to the pharmacist instead of the actual prescribing clinician themselves. So I don't know if that would play into how things would happen over here if we were to ever see something similar. Does anyone else have any further remarks? No. Tim?
No, I was just going to say that effectively that may be the current state of play, but these things are nuanced, and it's with shared care planning, the whole kind of nuance of a consultant prescribing the initial product. Moving forward, it's a relationship with those shared care clinicians that actually will enable an element of that to happen. The fact that you get prescription that says within a range is probably not possible, but if you spoke to a pharmacist or a doctor who was part of your shared care team, highly likely that it may well happen in the near future.
I think those are fair remarks. Yeah, we're seeing we're increasingly seeing shared care becoming the norm, whereby a specialist is handing over care to a pharmacist, a nurse, or even just office staff within a clinic. Hamish, do you like to answer?
Yeah. I'll just be really quick on this one. In order for it to happen, there'd have to be quite a material change in law. Many of you may or may not know this. But any product that we bring into the country, it requires a letter of clinical need from the prescribing clinician. So the challenge is for people trying to supply product in this country, I need to get a letter that says I've got X number of patients consuming X grams, 30 grams a month for a 3-month basis of this very specific product. And so when I submit that letter, when I go to import products, I have to submit that letter to the MHRA, the regulator for medicines, to say that they don't object. And the second, I have to submit an import license to Home Office for the very specific medicine, which makes it quite a lot of challenge, because as you can imagine, I've got many letters saved down to provide the variety of medicines that people require. and it's quite a lot of data to manage. So until such point where that law changes, it does make it quite difficult, because the clinician is very much responsible for a set number of people he or she prescribe to. Hope that makes sense.
No, good remarks there. Certainly the every single product that's imported into the UK right now has a letter of clinical need backing it, saying a particular patient needs this product, and it's something that a lot of patients are unaware of. Sarah, shall I pass it back to you for the next question?
This question, I'm not sure if we'll be able to actually answer it, probably because we don't really have like, you know, clinic presences here today, but I can ask it anyway and just see, because it was asked on the question. So it was with the increasing number of patients, we've seen an increasing number of unlawful arrests and seizures. Clinics are supporting patients when these issues occur, but what actions are clinics taking to ensure this doesn't continue and any misinformation or misguidance is condoned and clarified? I don't know if anyone can actually answer that one, but I'll put it out there.
Yeah, we don't have anyone here today specifically representing a clinic, but both Hamish and Tim are interested in answering. I think Hamish was first there.
So I did a wavy hand. We work with many clinics very, very closely. So it's a very tight relationship. So I'm very happy to answer this because we've seen many instances where clinics have come to us and said, can you help us? We've got a patient that's been stopped by police driving, or some, you know, or workplace policy. So one of the things I do when I'm not trying to manage Hilltop leave is I sit on the executive committee for CIC, which we've been working quite hard for the last couple of years to create a credible industry council that can help solve some of these problems for patients, ultimately by working together with the clinicians, but also local law. It's obviously very difficult for any individual or even any single company to work with regulators or with the police. But to give you literally a first-hand example from today, one of the clinics working with was, I can't remember if it's a clinic or a patient, was saying, what are we doing to kind of address the DVLA's issues with people with cannabis in their system, that if they're tested for cannabis within 6 months, they can show up and they risk losing their driving license. And the quick answer is that we have literally today been contacting the DVLA to inform them of what the rules and regulations are, basically sharing the driving paper that we put together as an industry council. It's early, it's young, it's accessible to all people, the CIC industry council, but there are white papers on driving, what the rules are, employment, A to Z of cannabis, to try, and it's not necessary to help patients who know a lot about this subject and know a lot about their medicine. It's to give us material to basically give it to the authorities, to educate the authorities. And that's being done very proactively at an industry level by clinics who have joined up and paid a subscription fee to the council, and also signed up to the sort of code of ethics as well. Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to echo exactly what Hamish has said, that effectively this is an industry problem. It's not a specific clinic problem, and it's understanding the regulation. The one advantage, one of the main advantages of medical cannabis is that the law switches from being against you to being on your side. And actually using that law is the most important thing. So it's an industry-wide thing. It's not specific to any particular clinic. And some of the great work that Guy Coxall does is phenomenal, with kind of helping people navigate the process of when they're challenged about driving. So I think that it's all very well moving forward to kind of work with the industry, each of the individual clinics. And for the person who said they can't hear me very well, I should put on my headset.
Thanks for that, Tim. And just quickly, we had an answer from Pierre as well in the chat about looser terms in prescriptions. And he says that every prescription in the UK has to be extremely specific and cannot be generic. Brands, doses, etc. Needs to be clarified, and the law will not change. Sarah, passing things back to you.
Yep. Okay. So This one it's quite a short one, but it's just patients have asked if we will ever see products like hash and live resin, and is anybody currently working on anything?
Tim, I'm going to assume you've got your hand up still from the last question. Hamish again.
I'm afraid it's a really boring answer. Is we're not working on live resin. We're in nearly in year 4 of trying to just be able to manufacture and produce just bud for people. The stage after that will be oil. The stage after that will be maybe even different dosage devices. But we live in a country that's, our medical regulation is designed to protect us as people, but it does make it very difficult to innovate. But it will happen, it will come. In my personal opinion, I think resin and hash are more likely in an event where the cannabis is deregulated, or sorry, scheduled from being a Schedule 2 controlled drug to being available on the same level as alcohol. But I think that's a 10-year outlook.
It's worth noting Australia has had some bubble hash products, or they did have some bubble hash products for around 6 months. Unfortunately, they introduced a requirement over there to need GMP certification, and I'm told that the current resin across there cannot meet GMP certification, so it's no longer available in Australia either. Sarah, passing it back to you for the next one.
Yeah, I've just had a question pop in the chat. Shall we do those later on, or do you want me to do them as they pop up in between?
We can do them now, maybe, so we don't miss them later.
Yeah, so this one was in the chat. Let me just pop it up. So it's for the so for Trish and Sonal, it's will the farm gas be coming back, and if so, when, please?
Well,
Trisha.
I will only, I'm going to be very careful how I say this. We try not to talk about products that we're going to get until we've got them. But as you know, we already had farm gas in the UK, and we will have farm gas in the UK again indefinitely.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank
So
you
as
very
far
much.
as we're aware, late November, hopefully, for the return of farm gas.
Yes, mid-November.
Brilliant.
There we go.
Guys, put a hand up. Sky.
Yeah, I have got a question for Aurora quickly. Your T25 oil that has been like absolutely magic for my severe insomnia seems like it's discontinued. Is that forever, or is it coming back at all? Because I'm freaking out because I can't get it anymore.
Okay, so the only thing I would say, I'm happy to say about that is that, so the oil or extracts that we've had most recently within the last 12 months have all come from our Nordic facility. But as you probably already all know, that we no longer have that facility. So there's a transition from all of our products that were cultivated or manufactured in the Nordic team to go across to Canada. So everything as of now comes out of Canada, and we will have our extracts back at some point in the near future.
Okay. So it's not a plan to get rid of that strain and that oil?
Not at all.
No. Okay, yeah, thank you. There's no time frame, I suppose, you know how long it's going to take, or?
Well, I don't really want to commit to time because we really hate disappointing people, but we think sometime around the first quarter of next year.
Brilliant.
Okay,
And is it the case, Trisha, that all the flowers are slowly then going to be transitioning to Canadian cultivation over the next few months?
They already are. All our flowers are Canadian now.
Okay. Looks like I've got some corrections to do a little bit later tonight. Passing things back to Sarah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Trisha.
Welcome.
Oh, we've got another question, which is packaging concerns. So on our medication, the labels degrade very easily, and patients are told that we need to display the labels for legal reasons, to present to police, etc. Is there any plans to waterproof these labels or actually improve them so that they don't degrade and we can rely on them? Does anybody want to take that one?
The labels that we receive at the moment are basic thermal labels. So basically, there's no ink on them whatsoever. It's the black text is applied just using heat. And of course, when exposed to natural environment for long periods of time, the whole label will naturally blacken as it's exposed to heat as well. So in order to get around this, we very much need to use something other than thermal paper or thermal stickers for the prescription labels. Hamish.
Yeah, when I introduced myself, I didn't say that I'm also a patient, and I suffer from a form of arthritis, and I get the product, and I have exactly that problem of the labels fading. Find if you put cling film on it, it will make it last longer, and don't take it outside the rain.
Fair remarks. Tim?
But they're cheap. Like, you know, your product, it will all get put through in the price of the product if the labels are increased, but you know, get it.
Yeah, true enough. Thermal labels cost, less than a penny each effectively when bought in bulk. Tim?
I was just going to say that is that's my dispensed product. The label we put on it for Lumir, that is a high quality label. It's a dispensing label, which actually goes over all the important driving information that we carefully, and we've had product refused because of the change in the wording of the driving label. Plus, there's a QR code to allow you to get more information in the COA. It's all covered by those labels that the pharmacies put on there. So it's a tricky one to call, because the labels that we as a company put on, those are high quality labels. It's actually the dispensing label from the pharmacy that's the issue, and there's no control we have over that. That's a pharmacy thing.
Yeah, I do find sometimes with the stickers, they cover like the actual name, or they'll cover something that I actually need to see on the tub to actually recognize which strain it is, from afar anyway. I know we've had a few patients that have had that issue.
I'll give you one more tip, is just take a photo of it, because whether or not you want to show your phone or not to a policeman, at the end of the day, then you've got it just in case,
Fair comment. Sarah, do we want to go on to the next question?
Yeah, we've just got more popping up in the chat, so I'll go through these for now. So, so the next one is discrepancies between pharmacies. Like at the moment, some pharmacies, I think I'm with IPS, my prescription comes in like a proper NHS looking prescription bag with my labels on, and it comes with a paper copy of my prescription and a little label, a little thing about CBPMs. And we was just trying to say is, why isn't this the standard across all the pharmacies? Why do some just send them in rattling around in boxes and with nothing with them? I'm not sure we might be able to answer that, because it's a bit of a, we've not really got.
The person closest related to a pharmacy on here today is again Hamish, if he has any comments.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, just reaching for my mute button. Yeah, in terms of kind of getting the right medicine for you, there's an element of trial and error, which is, again, you can't look at it, like we talked about earlier on the call. You can't see what it's like. But your clinician, and this is one of the reasons why clinicians work in this way, and they come on various different, they go to various different conferences. There's a group called MCCS where all the clinicians get together and they discuss what products are good for what patients. And so between them as independent, they try and make sure that they're sourcing the right products. So, for example, a clinician who supplies Trisha's Aurora flower may also supply Tim's Lumir flower, may also supply the Advent flower. Between, myself and some of the other wholesalers, we do our very best to try and stock the entire range so that the clinicians can choose what they're about, what they think is the most appropriate thing to prescribe. So, there is a variety. IPS, for example, they also have clinicians and they have a wholesaler, so they're integrated as well, and they'll choose. But IPS will prescribe Aurora product and Grow products and any other product in the market. So the aim is that people are quite product agnostic to give patients what they need. But the strength is also quite a big variable, I would say, almost more so than maybe the terpene count. Terpenes are a really, really hard thing to prescribe on. And one of the reasons for that is you can get a complete terpene profile at thousands of pounds expense for testing. But it doesn't mean it, that's not what you have to do to comply with the law. So if you want a complete terpene profile, you end up paying for a very, very premium product.
Yeah, to build on that point, we don't see terpene profiles for a lot of the products that are currently prescribed simply because of that expense. I've been told you might pay as much as £1,000 per terpene tested, and we're talking here of something that ideally needs doing every single batch. So of course, with phenotypic plasticity, general variation of the flower, there will be subtle variations in the terpene profile each time around. And if we were to ever try and base prescribing on terpenes alone, then that information would have to be a lot more authoritative than it is now. And I think we might have, this is a guesstimation, but I would guesstimate about 20% of the products on the market, flower, actually have authoritative terpene profiles right now. Sky, you've got your hand up.
I wanted to ask about, is there a cut-off point when companies reduce the cost of their flour when it's close to the sell-by date? So I went to order an Aurora flour today, and it's only got like 2 months on it, just a little bit more than 2 months, and it's not reduced. So just wondered if there's like a standard sort of, amount of time before the sell-by date that you guys would reduce the price, because there's sometimes I do see reduced cost strains when they're sort of quite old.
I'll just comment on that with one word: no, it's not allowed. You're not supposed to do that, as you're breaking regulations.
It's a good job you went first there, Trisha. That we are aware of quite a few distributors in this space. Actually, let me say 2 distributors in this space who will actively reduce the price of their flour if they've got a lot of stock left over when it's getting close to the expiry date. This isn't made as a specific discount because of the expiry, it's made as a general discount, and I think this is their regulatory excuse and how they get away with it right now. But just to echo Trisha's comments, I have heard other people in the past telling me this, strictly speaking, should not happen in the UK industry, even though it does. Hamish?
You were asking about time, Sky, and you said 2 months. Most pharmacies we work with won't take anything that's got less than a month on it. So 2 months is relatively normal. So prices, putting that on the shelf because the others explained it, it's not abnormal to get 2 month expiry on your product. It's up to you. Depends on how the doctor, how he doses it, she doses it for you.
It's when you've got a strain that you don't use all the time, and like for me, the balanced strains I don't use as much as the stronger THC strains, but so I kind of want them to last a little bit longer. I mean,
I can't give health advice because I'm not a clinician, but as a patient, when I want to balance my prescription, I will have less. I'll buy less. I'll buy a 5 gram pack of flour rather than a 10, or I would consider that using kind of a smaller 10 ml oil that is from a similar strain.
Most companies don't do 5 ml packs though. Is there any Advil and the Spectrum ones that do 5 grams? So I think this, that comes to an issue that we all looking for smaller amounts. We are.
You've just raised I was going to say, Sky, you've just raised a question we had in our first industry meeting, and that was, will we see smaller pots? I know there's a lot of patients out there who simply want 1 gram sample pots so they can try a range of flour, find out what's suitable for them, and then order a higher amount the next month. Problem we have at the moment, of course, is that a patient might have to pay £80–90 to try a product for the first time, and it's a bit of a barrier to access. Does anyone have any comments on that? No, okay.
I'm worried about taking up too many of the comments. It only really exists in the oil with 10 and 30 mils. Unfortunately, it's going to be a lot more expensive on a per gram basis to buy a 5 gram pack than a 10 gram pack.
Have you got any plans then, as for your Hilltop brand, bringing out smaller 5 gram packs? Or
we have got some, and for me, being on this call is incredibly useful to hear what people want and need. I say need is probably a more appropriate word, because we can understand patient needs, because at the end of the day, it starts with a letter of clinical need from a doctor who is prescribing patients what they need. So we'll take this feedback, and it's incredibly useful to receive, because we can decide what quantities things get packed in. But the problem is if I pack a large quantity of a product in a 5 gram pack that only a very, very small number of people want, I'm the one who ends up losing a lot of money. And if we end up losing a lot of money, we just won't exist. And
you have the same overheads on a 10 gram pot as a 5 gram pot, right, Hamish? You just have twice the amount of work actually physically packing it. And I think this is the big reason we don't see smaller quantity sizes, because it would mean higher prices per gram for patients a lot of the time.
Every single pot is weighed out with precision scales. I mean, just to give you guys an idea, weighing scales is not good enough. Scientific weighing scales is still not good enough. Our weighing scales have to be calibrated to make sure they give you the precise weight on a kind of a regular basis in terms of maintenance. So to have an automated system that will weigh the product in 5 and 10s, smaller batches are quite hard to achieve. But if we were able to somehow get a consensus of what type of product people need, it's very interesting to collect the feedback.
I would also make the comment that if you're going to try a very small amount, sometimes you need to give a product a bit of time to try it, and you probably will not pursue it or not continue with something, maybe prematurely.
That's a fair remark.
As a patient, I wouldn't mind paying more per gram for a smaller amount, because it was still going to work out cheaper than buying a 10 gram pot of something that doesn't work for you. So
yeah, but you might decide, not you personally, but a patient might decide after trying something for a very short period of time that they don't really want that, or that it doesn't work. But really, sometimes that you really have to try this product and give it all the products and give them a period of time to work, because you're probably
not if you've got a bad reaction, though. I mean,
yes, of course, if you have a bad...
I can't cope with limonene. So if a strain's got limonene in that is making me feel really anxious, I'm not going to keep trying it until it's gone just to give it a good go.
No, I'm not. That's not the situation I'm talking about. The situation I'm talking about is if you're trying a product and you want to try a smaller pack, and sometimes you need more. Doctors will encourage you to stick with the program.
So, Marks, Tim, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Ralph. I was just going to say that one of these things is, these pots, they're shipped around the world. So the medical cannabis industry is not known for its environmental credentials, full stop, but actually shipping even more volume of these pots for the same quantity of cannabis is going to be another big nail in its environmental credentials. But I fully get what you're saying, that actually being able to sample something, because you have to buy 10 grams at a time, is a tricky thing to do. And sometimes you find that cultivar doesn't work for you. So that, again, all of these things are fluid. And as a community, obviously there are elections coming up next year. Let's make cannabis a real electoral issue, because the regulations need to change. We all know that. There's real emphasis on moving forward and not accepting the way things are. We need to challenge and we need to push the envelope. And I think these kind of consultative where we're talking to community are incredibly helpful. And I think that moving forward, this is where we can actually get the government to change the regulations. It's politicians who set the laws, it's regulators who interpret them. So we actually need to change in the law. We need a full-on cannabis policy in the UK. And we all need to work towards that. This is just one aspect of that.
Well said, Tim. I think a lot of what you just said applies to cannabis in general. Outside of little issues with the amount prescribed and whatnot, there's a lot of pressure that can be put onto regulators to change things going forward. Pierre's also put a comment in the chat here. He said it's too expensive to do 5 gram tubs and would only work out if people would order 5 or or 5 different little pots at a time. But that would make for a big prescription. As many of us know, you can only fit 4 products per script, and yeah. Sarah, I think we're on question 6 now from the original list.
Yeah, no, I did 6, but I'm just looking 7 and 8 are kind of on the same thing with the terpenes and stuff like that. So I was gonna jump to
I would ask 7 if I was you, Sarah, because it's a great point in general.
yeah, I mean it's not really my view, because I'm kind of on the thing that with my condition I do need indica strains. Sapvias do make me very unwell, so I'm not sure I quite agree with it, but it's generally accepted that Sapvia and indica are unhelpful terms based on disproven and outdated understanding of the history of cannabis flowers. And you know, we do agree with that when African medicine's labeled a Sapvia, or it's labeled a hybrid, or it's labeled an indica, sometimes someone will try it and have obviously a lot different effects, but that's due to the terpenes rather than it being labeled a Sapvia, an indica, etc. The question goes on to say, different cannabinoids and plant chemicals impact the effects of the plant. Previously, I would have used the word terpenes, but with the discovery and understanding of the importance of other non-terpene volatile compounds, can we expect to see the industry update its guidance, testing standards and patient guidance to at the very and greater nuance to Sapvia indica binary?
This is a great question in general. I'll be the first to say I think that indica and sativa are outdated terms that we shouldn't be using in 2023. We should be looking at a variety of genetic lineage, the terpenes, the cannabinoids, and as the question just said, the non-terpene volatile compounds that you find, which aren't very well documented. The key important point here is that what we import right now is based on the European Pharmacopoeia monographs. That's 5.1.4, 5.1.8. They only measure they only mandate that you measure for certain cannabinoids and not any of the non-terpene volatile compounds that you can find. So effectively what we need here is a change to European Pharmacopoeia in order to see those test results for UK products, because right now they're not tested for it. But similar to the debate with terpenes earlier, where it can cost a producer thousands of pounds just to get a terpene report done, the same applies here to this extra research on other compounds within cannabis that they don't have to do, and right now there isn't much motivation to do it. Tim, you've got your hand up.
I was just going to say the kind of precision around what is a herbal product is very difficult to maintain, because the terpene levels, the cannabinoid levels, the flavonoid levels change between batches of cultivars that are grown. So precise kind of definitions around this are very difficult to achieve. But the cannabis industry is nothing but innovative, and there's a whole range of new products. This is one that's come along. This is EndoDNA. This is a DNA testing kit that basically maps your endocannabinoid system against CBD and THC and research that has been peer-reviewed on terpenes. So you get a precise readouts of how different cannabinoids and terpenes affect you, and that is where you can get this level of detail that some people are looking for. For me, I mean, it doesn't really make that much difference, but when I did the test, CBD had never worked for me, and I found out that I was a super processor of CBD, so I have to either quadruple the amount of CBD or reduce the amount of time I take, whereas THC works very well for me. So this just confirms what I already knew, but bases it in science. So it is coming, and it will be there, and these tests are available now if you want that kind of precise detail and know exactly what you are, how you will react to different cultivars.
Hi, thanks for that, Tim. I believe you're talking about the EndoDNA testing kits, aren't you? Is that right? You're muted.
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah, so the endoDNA kits allow you to do, as Tim just said, testing for your response to particular cannabinoids. It's something that not many patients have tried yet, but something, as far as I understand, the industry is going to be looking at a lot going forward. Just to finish off that last question, I've got a quote here from an American doctor, which I thought I'd read about indica and sativa. There are biochemically distinct strains of cannabis, but the sativa/indica distinction as commonly applied in the lay literature is total nonsense and an exercise in futility. One cannot in any way currently guess the biochemical content of a given cannabis plant based on its height, branching, or leaf morphology. The degree of interbreeding/hybridization is such that only a biochemical assay tells a potential consumer or scientist what is really in the plant. It is essential that future commerce allows complete and accurate cannabinoid and terpene profiles to be available. So I thought I'd bring that out because that's a prescribing doctor's perspective in America, and I think many of us would agree they can be a few years ahead of us across the pond here. Sarah, back to you for the next one.
Okay, thank you. So we're up to, okay, so it says terpenes require a high concentration to have a noticeable effect. In terms of medical cannabis, and it's often limited terpene content lost through irradiation and so on, would you say there is a noticeable effect when consuming, perhaps contributing to the synergistic effect of the flower overall, or just to our senses, or more of a presence that people gravitate towards? An example maybe being high pinning, sorry, I can't say my words today, pinning, yeah, having an earthy pine note and through our senses giving us calm associated with this terpene. So also we've got just added on to that, when researching and selecting a new cultivar, how important are the terpene profiles and selecting specific phenotypes for these?
That's a great question and very in depth. Does anyone want to address that?
I can talk
Okay.
about the phenotyping and the cultivars. So it's not as simple as just deciding based on certificates of analysis or we'll go with this one, we'll go with that one. I'll tell you about Medcan's journey. So Medcan about a year ago decided that we wanted to start cultivating a new strain, and we decided on the strain, but the way to go about when you cultivate a new strain is you have to plant loads and loads of seeds. At Medcan we do everything from other plants, so in order to get the right phenos you have to start with hundreds and hundreds of phenos and then whittle them down to the one pheno that you actually like. It takes months and months and months. To answer the question, yes, we did. We sent every pheno that every pheno that we thought we wanted to go ahead with, we sent every single one for testing. So we isolated the plant, we identified the plant that we knew was a certain pheno, and then we sent that for a full gamut of testing, terpene analysis, cannabinoid analysis, and then based on what we thought were good results, we then whittled down the phenotype. That's about 80 or 90% of it. The other 10%, which as a patient you may or may not consider, is that we run a facility and the plant has to work in the facility. It's all very good and well to have plans to grow a plant, but if the plant doesn't want to grow in your conditions and in your facility, there's only so much you can do. So I would say 10 or 15% of the job is also finding something that works well in your facility. It's not to say that a plant that works well in one facility will work well necessarily in a different facility. So that's kind of the journey that we go on when it comes to choosing phenos, choosing not necessarily strains. And again, it goes back to the previous points of indica and sativa. We don't really care whether the plant is an indica, whether the plant's sativa. We don't discuss it at all at Medcan. All we care about is what the certificates of analysis say and what actually is produced, and the cannabinoid concentration, the terpene concentration, and all that kind of stuff.
Well said there, Micael. So you don't specifically hunt down a particular strain for a particular terpene. It's more about the strains that you think would be good for medical use, then doing testing on them and finding out which one does have the most prevalent terpenes at the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the markets at the moment, if you think about the general population, I know there's a lot of people saying that they want this terpene, they want that terpene. If we take a step back and as a community think about what the overall people, want certain amounts of THC and they want certain amounts of CBD. People on the general population, let's say, is not yet talking about all the other cannabinoids or demanding that we, they only want a strain that is high in, let's say, limonene. They don't care about anything else. They just want, it's very rare to hear that. I think from our perspective, the general, and I'm not necessarily saying it's the right thing. I don't necessarily agree that it's the right thing, but I think the general population is saying they want THC and they want CBD. Maybe in more mature markets, people are saying, yes, we want strains with CBG or CBN or all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, fair remarks there for sure, Micael. Sky, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I understand the sort of indica sativa thing, is like so many plants have become really hybridized, but we need something more than what we've got. If we're just going on THC and CBD, it's not going to be enough to know how it's going to make us feel. It just isn't enough. We really need the terpene info.
So at Medcan, we test for everything. So the limiting factor for us is the laboratory. So we use a laboratory at the moment in South Africa that is able to test. I think I haven't seen any other COAs that list the amount of terpenes that we're able to test, that we test for. I say we, the lab that we use. We're limited by what the lab can test for. So if the lab adds more terpenes, we'll test for more terpenes. But if we want to test for those terpenes, there's no one else that can do those tests for us. We're not a testing facility. We're a cultivator.
Yeah, well said, Micael. Of course, the Medcan entire range has terpene profiles available, as does the entire Aurora range as well, via IPS. Tim, will we be getting full terpene profiles at any point for Lumir flower?
Indeed, the ones that are coming in, they have a full terpene analysis that covers, I think, 40. So there are monoterpenes, whatever the whole range of different terpenes are, because terpenes are not one thing. There is so much testing going on. Just like Micael said, this is coming from Canada, and the testing facilities there are just extraordinary compared to anywhere else. The UK doesn't have anything comparable at the moment.
Fair enough. I'm actually just going to ask a question direct here as we've got you, Tim, because it's directly for you. How do Lumir have Boveda packs inside the pots? Have you done studies on pots with and without Bovedas? Lumir products are always not too dry and have terps, and I believe the Boveda plays a large part.
This is historic. We're a company based in cannabis. Our founders emanate from Jamaica, and the whole kind of way that they approached it was to start out with the premise that they got best benefit from cannabis, and they wanted to make sure everybody else did. So terpene, preserving the relative humidity of cannabis while you're transporting it around the world is one of the most important things you have to do. A Boveda pack does that. They originated in the cigar industry, so that's where they come from. They've got a lot of heritage and they actually work really well. We did testing. It started out in Australia. We did testing. We made sure the amount of testing you have to do is absolutely incredible. And that's not just about Boveda packs, that's about what pots it goes in, the packaging, all of these things, stability testing, the active pharmaceutical ingredient, THC, CBD. In the UK, from a label claim, the variance can only be 10%. So between batches, you have to ensure. So if you've got something with 20% of a label claim for THC, it can only vary by 10% either side of that, which is very difficult. In Australia, it's 20%. So it's imperative to try and maintain the performance of the medication, and Boveda packs are really good at that, and that's why we've used them from the very beginning.
Thanks for that, Tim. I know a lot of patients are very glad to see Boveda packs in their pots. In a previous industry council meeting, it was mentioned that Boveda packs might not be regulatory compliant. Do you have any remarks on that comment? Not to put you on the spot here too much, Tim, but
I was gonna say, I think I'm pretty certain they are. However, They're certainly recognised by the TGA, so and we have mutual recognition between the two. So my assumption is yes, they are.
Yeah,
And
the
we haven't had
TGA
any
being
problems.
Australia's medicine regulator, like the UK
Therapeutic.
MHRA.
Exactly.
Okay, Sarah, I think we've got about 5 questions left from the original question. So do we want to go to them first, maybe, until we get to all the questions in the chat?
Yeah, we've only got a few more left. So, right, next one is, I think actually, yeah, this is what it's just a long question. So it just basically says, what does it actually take to get your medical cannabis replaced or refunded if you have issues? The person then links to various like conversation, one in Discord where a patient had spoke to the pharmacy. They had issues with that, they wasn't happy with their medication. I think it was full of seeds. And then that they said that they'd sent it off for testing, and because seeds are, you know, plant matter, it was deemed that it was all acceptable and that there was no refund to be given, but that they couldn't have the medication back or a refund. So in that case, the patient kind of really lost out. So and then they go on to say is that they just kind of ranting on a little bit. They're just saying it's unacceptable. So what actually counts as an issue with medication if it's been sent back, tested, then denied?
Before anyone answers this, just quickly, seeds are not allowed in European pharmacopoeia. There is no allowance for seeds within the monograph that cannabis has to ascribe to be imported into the UK. Seeds shouldn't be found. It's that simple. If you do find them, do not vaporize them, and it is grounds to return it to your pharmacy, as far as I see. To back up the point that this patient is making, we have seen instances where a patient has found seeds or suspected mold, or something has worried them about their flower. They've returned it to the pharmacy. The pharmacy has simply said all is okay, and then not been able to return that flower to the patient, leaving them out of pocket. And I think that's the big part of this question here. Hamish.
I think another thing is, you know, the patient is most important here, and everything we do is towards kind of patient satisfaction. So I just wanted to share a few tips on returning product. It's very helpful if you take a photograph of the product that you're about to return, so the person returning it, the company returning it, can kind of see what the issue is, number one. Number two, if you're going to return the product, suggest doing it in a, you know, taking it to the post office and doing it in a track package, or getting something for it. We have had product that has been returned and then never arrived, which makes it really, really hard if it's sort of jammed in second-class mail with no tracking. And third, I just wanted to mention, in the event that there is product returned, it's then taken very seriously, and a yellow card is reported to the regulator, and that entire batch with that product is also then looked at as potential for a return. So for example, if you had a product, whether it was an oil or a flower, say take the oil and you had a very adverse reaction, you'd obviously want to speak to your doctor. But in the event that you had a flower product that was covered in mold, the wholesaler would consider a return, a complete what's it called, a callback from that entire batch. So when you get your product, it's got a batch number on it and an expiry date on it, which enables us to identify it, and then we monitor every single script and every single product from every single batch that everyone gets. So if you're going to return a product, we really appreciate you being pretty convinced that there's something badly wrong with it, because you are taking a risk that there's a big product return or product recall from many patients who've received one single batch. So it is important that you kind of follow the steps, but there's very much a system that is supported by the regulator. It's called the yellow card system that allows product returns. I'm sure Ralph's got some other thoughts on it too.
Yeah, indeed. I've had it myself, actually, returning my own flower to my pharmacist, who then had the due diligence to go and file a yellow card report for me. So pharmacists who are worth their stuff in this space will actually go and preemptively go and file a yellow card report themselves. The other part I wanted to mention, Hamish, quickly was, as far as I'm aware, a lot of the pharmacies at the moment, when they're dealing with a return, will actually book a return from their end themselves to avoid the whole problem of patients sending things back through untracked Royal Mail second class or something like that. So might be something worth looking into.
Yeah.
Sky, you've had your hand up for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, taking a photograph would work for something like C. You can see them, but for something else, like for my recent thing, I got some Tripoli, and it had a burning plastic in it, so I can't really visibly sort of prove that it smells like that. And yeah, admin basically said, you know, chances are we'll say it's okay and we won't send it back to you. So I haven't even bothered, but I know that, you know, there are other patients that have had the same issue with that burning smell. So there's obviously an issue somewhere with the pots or the seals or something, but I just don't want to send it back, because in case I'm like super poor and like I have to just use that because I haven't got, you know, money for anything else, I haven't sent it back because I'm pretty sure they won't send it back to me. So yeah.
I actually had the exact same problem as you, Sky, with an Advent product, and it did go via a third-party pharmacy, and my pharmacy was good enough to refund me. But from what I understand, them then getting Rockshaw or Advent to refund them never actually happened. So they took the hit for me in the end.
That's really good. That's good. And then IPS just refused it, and they said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with that product, and you're the only one that said that." And I know I'm not. I've spoken to at least 5 patients that have had the same thing. Yeah,
I'm happy to comment.
I was going to try and tag you in on this, Micael.
Yeah. So we had a few patients reach out to us about the smell, the plastic smell. So we conducted. So our product is packed by Rockshaw. I think many people know that. So we did it. We ourselves and Rockshaw did an investigation. So there's nothing, Sky, you should know that there's nothing wrong with the product. The smell's not coming from the product. If you want details,
no, I know it's coming from the packaging, but
yeah,
it just it just makes the product absorb that sort of smell, and it like I was literally physically retching. I've never experienced that with cannabis before. It was horrendous.
Yeah, so the challenge is that according to the challenges, again, a regulatory one, is that the seal has to be significant or sufficient enough that there's no smell that escapes. And in order for the seal to be significant enough, they have to heat it to a certain degree to make this to have the seal seal properly so that there's no smell that escapes. We experimented on sealing it at a lower temperature, and it just didn't work. But having said that, based on all that feedback, we're hopefully very, very, very soon transitioning away from the plastic tubs to the foil packaging. So you should see.
Yeah, because that avoids the issue. That's a really good idea. I think they're better anyway, really.
So yeah,
but,
so
yeah,
hopefully with the Isando,
any other products other than the admin ones. But yeah,
so hopefully with the Isando flower, when we transition away from the tub, then you won't have the smell anymore.
That's great news. That's good. You're taking it on board. You know, I don't think admin are, but it's really good that Lumir are. You know, thank you.
The feedback loop's really important to us. So if patients hadn't complained to us, then we wouldn't have known, and we wouldn't be able to make any changes. So keep the feedback coming, basically.
Well said. Tim, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're happy to look at every complaint from patients, either go through your pharmacy or come direct to me. We will look at everything. As Hamish said, please take a photograph and do not use half of your medication before you tell us that it didn't have the right kind of whatever you've claimed is incorrect with it, because then it looks really bad, and we kind of look at that as something that not all patients are as driven to be as honest and upstanding as we all assume they will be. So sometimes we do have to make decisions that don't go a patient's way, but that's always an evaluation. And we, as a company, we had an issue with CC8 Candela Chem that came in. We'd imported 10 kilograms because the seals weren't correctly aligned in Australia. we had to recall the whole batch. Medical cannabis is highly controlled, and this is one of the real kind of things moving forward, that the quality that you should get should always be outstanding, because it goes through so many measures. Now, that's outstanding as medication, maybe not compared to your illicit cannabis, because your illicit cannabis, you've no idea how it was grown, whether it's got plant growth hormones, which are really bad, etc., etc. There's a lot of stuff that goes into medical cannabis, and there's a lot of controls around it. So we do try and ensure product safety at all times.
Aye, thanks for that, Tim. And it's worth pointing out that at 2 pharmacies, they have very specific policies with returns, whereby they will weigh the amount that's returned and refund you proportionately. So if you use 50% of your medication before returning, you could only ever get a 50% refund, and it's probably quite a fair practice, to be honest. Sarah?
Ralph, just on your point about seeds, I'm no expert, but I believe that seeds are classified as foreign matter, and there is a very, very, very small allowance for. It's not that they can't exist in the flower. There is a very small, at least in the new proposed monograph.
What is the name of the new proposed monograph? I read about it, but I can't remember the number.
2% of foreign matter, I believe, in a sample. So I don't know how much that would actually equate to in terms of seeds, but it's not that they can't be allowed, it's that there just should be very few, if none. Yeah.
Theoretically 0.2 grams of seeds in a 10-gram tub if it's a 2% allowance. That's very interesting to hear, actually. Sarah, going back to you in the next question.
Yeah, just letting that sink in for a moment.
Yeah, me too. That was a bit of a shock to the system.
I just thought, okay, so what are producers doing to ensure they have balanced ranges that stock products that are relatively consistent, with the flower?
And that stock and products are consistent. So Tim, do you still have your hand up from before?
Oh, I do, but I'm happy to kind of take that on. So what do we do? It's a highly controlled growing environment that the cultivars are grown in, and every measure is taken to make sure that the cannabinoid profile and the terpene profile remain consistent moving forward. But it is a herbal product, and it responds differently at different times. In terms of what's available in the country to be prescribed, there's a fantastic resource called MedBud Wiki, and if you look on there, you'll find that everything is on the way up for THC levels, whereas my understanding of everything about medical cannabis is we're looking for a balanced CBD THC. So we're actually going to be bringing in a balanced THC CBD flower to kind of address some of these areas. People using high THC during the day, for me, it certainly doesn't work for me, and I'm sure it doesn't work for everyone else. It's just kind of one of those things that with that 10% variance on a label claim, it is so difficult to maintain CBD and THC levels of 7 or 8% within 10%. So again, the regulations are there. It doesn't need primary legislation from the government to change that. It needs a Secretary of State to actually put an amendment into the acts that govern medical cannabis. So there are ways of changing these things and moving things forward, but it's all about process. So I would strongly kind of look at what the future is within the upcoming election. 2 political parties already kind of are in favor of wider legislation for cannabis.
It's pretty reassuring news.
Ralph, I'm just going to jump in quickly and say to Tim that I kind of agree with that, because in the past I always used to go for high THC strains, and I think for me, I don't know if that is the same for everybody, but that comes from my black market days, because I wanted the most strength for my money back then, because I wasn't sure what the quality was going to be like, and at least I could guarantee it was X%. It would possibly do something for me. But recently, I've gone down to strains that are like 18 for in the day, and honestly, I really find the difference is quite incredible. They still have exactly the same kind of effects, but I'm not as sedated. So, you know, I do think that's the kind of way to go. I would love to see more strains around 18, more with better terpene profiles. You know, that would be great for me. Hamish, you've got your hand up.
I mean, I was going to say, thanks for organising this call. I know we're getting towards the end of the questions. What we do as producers and wholesalers is listen to patients. You know, Trisha and I are going for dinner with some doctors tomorrow night in Leicester to hear their views. You know, we just try and keep our ears to the ground. So tell us what you want, and we try and do it. The challenge, and I just think if an opportunity to speak to a large group of patients for some of us is to give patients what they want, because when people change their minds a lot, it becomes harder to suddenly, you know, all of a sudden I've got a load of farm gas on the shelf, and then the next thing is I've got a load of Lumir on the shelf, and the next thing I've got a load of Grow LA Sage on the shelf. We try and keep a balance all of the time, but again, listen very much to the doctors in terms of what they want in terms of letters of need. But it's trying to keep that range between, you know, the 18%, 22s, the 25s and the 27s, couple of each, because people respond differently. And that's a big part of the challenge. And in terms of, consistency is, I put my hand in my pocket and buy a load of the stuff and put it on my shelf. That's how we try and give the patients a consistent supply, so that when you guys see a doctor or a nurse for your repeat prescription, I have it on the shelf to give you. I'm not waiting for the regulator. And that's us spending, you know, supermarkets spend a lot of money to keep their shelves very, very fully stacked. So that's what we try and do.
Hey, thanks for that, Hamish. Just before we go to Sky, I've got a comment here from Alex Fraser, the patient lead at Grow Pharma. Says there's plenty of evidence that THC alone works for many patients where balance doesn't. THC can reduce THC activity. We need more balanced options, definitely, though. And someone asked in the chat, who does Hamish represent? He represents Hilltop Leaf. They're based up in Dumfries, near Dumfries in Scotland, and they're going to be one of the first UK cultivators to the market, hopefully. Sky, what's your question?
I've got two really quick ones. The first one, well, not a question, but yeah, I'd like more balanced strains because there's so few. But I think I was at a meeting with Pierre a few weeks ago, and I'm pretty sure you said, Pierre, that it was harder to grow, like balanced strains, didn't you say?
That's probably within the
strains
10% variance that Tim was speaking about. Because, of course, if you've got something rated 8% CBD, then it can only go from 7.2 to 8.8% CBD. And that's a hell of a small tolerance for, you know, natural batch variation or phenotypic plasticity, etc. Sarah, I'm going to chuck it back to you for the final question I can see from the original list. And it's probably the most exciting one too.
Yeah, hoping maybe a few may answer this one. So have we got any new and exciting flowers or products coming soon that anyone can tell us about? So we've got something to look forward to for Christmas, etc.
We see who's willing to take that. Tim?
We have KK Mints and Kush Cake, LA Kush Cake coming. They should be here following mid-month towards the end of the month.
Oh, wow. That is some news. And Tim, to put you on the spot here, is there any, if you can confirm, is there any pricing available yet for the LA Kush Cake, or can you confirm if it will be price competitive with current options that are available?
We're using a fantastic resource to look at pricing and see where we should pitch, but it's going to be kind of where our pricing is currently.
Okay. Which means patients have a lot to look forward to as I interpret things. Going to Kieran before Sky again.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. So are we on to like other questions now?
I guess we are now, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
cool.
we're on to other questions as well, but I just wanted, before we kind of get to the end, if we could kind of squeeze Pierre in.
Yeah.
He's here from Grow Pharma, and I think he'd just like to chat with us all. There was some, you know more about it, Ralph, but there been some news recently.
Sure.
Came on his horse.
So should we just quickly take these last questions from Kieran and Sky, then we can go over to Pierre and have a chat about the announcement. Okay. So Kieran.
Joke. Yeah, so sorry, I've wrote mine down so I don't forget what I've got to say. So I'll pop it in the chat in a minute. So I fully appreciate that not being pharmacies and clinics, you have limited involvement. But I'd just like to hear your opinion as you work and have influence in this industry. So when speaking to patients and members from the industry at the London Patient Conference on Friday, I asked them for their opinions on the medical ID cards that are being brought to market. Some were in favour, others were not. The clinics are considering this with what seems to be very little consultation from patients. So the first part to my question is, what are you doing to ensure the expected level of legal protection is being honoured and accepted by officers? And secondly, may I ask your opinions on medical ID cards and if you believe this is how the industry should progress?
Okay, so opening that up to the floor then, and Pierre, as you're now joining us, feel free to chime in as well.
Yeah, shall I have a go? I mean,
go on then, Pierre. You seem to be the one who's willing to who's willing to come out and speak about it.
We will not support any medical ID card. Simple as that. There's no need. Your prescription and your prescription top are legal evidence for having a prescription. Everybody's already confused as it is. Now we have, what is it, Can card, and then we get Can doctor card, and Relief are going to do a card. What's that going to do? None of them are legal. None of them are recognized. Everybody thinks that they are, and they all want money, or they don't want money for you to do it, but it's going to be a hassle. I don't think, definitely we're not going to support this.
Fair remarks, I feel. Does anyone else have any comments on unofficial card schemes? No, I think you probably buried that in one there, Pierre. Just to offer a detracting comment, someone in the chat has said that they wholeheartedly disagree. The police are uneducated and a card would help. How do people feel about that?
I mean, the police are obviously uneducated, but I mean, maybe Alex can talk about it. But what we have been doing and talking about is creating a fund where we as an industry will support anybody who has been arrested, whose medication has been taken away, and take individual police forces to court. So if you do that a couple of times and then start going for damages and everything else, they will learn very quickly.
So I imagine it would look very good for anyone who was willing to step up and support patients like that financially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alex just commented in the chat as well. We need a solution to arrests that isn't a marketing scheme. We can educate police without cards. And I wholeheartedly agree with that comment.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sarah.
Sorry, it's just that basically what Pierre said, that we have everything that we need already. We have prescriptions. It's supposedly enough. It's just, why confuse things more? It's just that nothing's been done in 5 years, and now it's got to the point where patients are having to get involved to get things sorted. So, I think it's just the case of, more education is needed rather than wasting money on pieces of plastic that are useless.
If I could say one thing, and this is going to sound incredibly strange coming from me, to play devil's advocate a little bit here. One thing I acknowledged when I was speaking to CanCard is that they do offer some tools for people to, interact with police and, certain other services. I won't go into it too much. Is there not something that clinics could be doing for patients to support them more in these scenarios?
Kieran, do you mean here, the tools to go and show a copy of your prescription to police easily?
I mean, both. I mean, in the sense that, I think a lot of patients who say they are in favor of a card, they're saying it because it's the convenience of it. It's the less they have to interact with the police, the better. And I fully appreciate that. But I'm talking more of like support, like help for that. Not just
if a patient has an issue, then they need to get it followed up on. Are these the processes you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
We need some sort of
if you're in the midst of interacting with a police officer, having some kind of helpline for that.
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. I'm going to let Tim answer first, and we'll go back to the point about helplines in a minute.
Well, there's a couple of points. Effectively, the government have set up a registry for cannabis users inside of the NHS, but it's only for people who've been prescribed by the NHS, where it makes eminent sense to widen that out to all the clinics that are prescribing privately. Effectively, all private prescriptions end up in a department in the NHS called NHS Business Services. They catalogue everything that's going on, but the government, for some reason or other, doesn't want that data provided. If you're in Canada or Australia, that data would be public domain information. That registry already exists. It's being set up. It's inside of the NHS. So the very fact that traditionally men always get the best advantage. Viagra was prescribed as private medicine through the NHS in its initial stages. So was PrEP. There is a model that works here, and there is a way of doing this without the private cannabis registration schemes. It's all set up. What needs to happen is that as a community, we need to find a voice and actually say to the government, you need to make some changes here. That's the way it'll work, in my opinion.
Very well said, Tim. And just to make some more points about the database that Tim was speaking to there, the NHS has something called NHSI, and all CBPMs that are prescribed via the NHS are noted and logged on this system. There was a suggestion made by MP Kit Milthouse, something like that. Thank you. Around a year ago, and he suggested that this database could be extended to the private sector, that all private cannabis clinics could contribute to this database. That would solve a few key issues. It would mean that there's a centralized repository to go and check patient information against. It would mean when you sign up for a clinic, they could check that you're not registered elsewhere, because not something I should highlight here, but there is not very many safeguards in the background right now to check if you're not registered at multiple clinics. And moreover, it would provide public stats for the first time on the amount of patients that we could continually access by asking for freedom of information requests. So we'd always know how many patients there are. And whoever watched the patient conference on Friday with Drug Science and Medcan Family Foundation, Professor Mike Barnes opened that by stating there was 32,000 patients now in the UK, and the only way he was able to get that number was by physically ringing every single clinic. And because of his very neutral position and someone who's been very trusted throughout the industry, they were willing to give him that information to compile the numbers. Just before we go to you, Sky, Hamish has his hand up.
Just very much idea jumping in my head. One of the things the industry council does for free for every patient is there's a area on the website of resources to help patients. On the driving side, we're putting together a leaflet to help people, literally a 10-point guide for what if you're stopped by the police. This is what you need to do, and this is what your rights are as a law-abiding citizen in the UK. But on top of that, there's a resource which is our Protect Our Patients campaign. Now, the industry council shouting on a website, we can use these documents ourselves to kind of send to governments. And we work with lobbyists to try and have a voice in government, but it's hard. How would patients feel, and people may think this is ridiculous, if the Protect Our Patients campaign was to organise a rally through Westminster urging the government to allow GP prescription of medical cannabis? My GP will prescribe tramadol for pain, but not medical cannabis. Maybe if you're in favour of a rally to protect our patients, follow Kieran in putting the clappy hand sign up on your screen.
Kieran, you've just been nominated to spearhead a new crusade in front of Parliament. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Yeah.
And if we do it, it will have happened on this call.
Yeah,
I need to get a fake plan.
just to jump in there,
I can't go there without a fake plan. I need one.
Yeah, we was actually MCPA was actually talking about organising something for next year. So if you can arrange anything, we're happy to join in.
Okay, doke. I'm going to throw things to Sky now before we go to Pierre quickly.
Yeah, just on that last that last topic, we need a way to have our meds verified when it's out of hours, because when I got threatened with getting my meds seized, it was Sunday evening and my clinic was closed. I couldn't call them, and basically I was threatened with getting my meds seized. You know, we have no roadmap for out of hours proving our prescriptions, and it's not good enough really 5 years in.
Sky, I think it's far worse than that, actually. Not all clinics are willing to engage with the police. Not all pharmacies are willing to engage with the police. And as you say, they can only be gotten hold of between particular hours. You know, some clinics, as they become more and more in this industry, might throw their hands up and say, not our problem, the law's there, we don't have to deal with this. So we do need some kind of impartial third-party service which monitors the industry for patients, provides a point of contact of the police, and it doesn't exist yet. So while I didn't intend to propose this during the call, but as Hamish has started making big proposals in this call, I might as well continue. Perhaps we should be asking clinics and pharmacies to financially support the opening of a 24-hour patient helpline for the police.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I really agree. We need to be putting pressure on our clinics to do this, definitely.
Well, that's a point unto itself, and I don't want to distract from the meeting today too much, so we can pick up on that later within the Discord group and see if we want to make something of it.
I have one question that wasn't related to that. That was my original reason why I had the hand up, but it was just one last question related to Hilltop. I just wondered what your pricing. I mean, I know you're a little bit away before you have your UK medically grown weed available, but what pricing area is it going to be? Is it going to be like the premium? Is it going to be budget? Is it going to be middle range? Just wondering if you have any ideas yet about your pricing for your UK weed.
Like we talked about, having variety and balance, not just balance CBD and THC, but a balance of products in a product portfolio. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, in order to produce our own product, we have to get MHRA and Home Office licensing. And for me, it's a great cost to us, to our business, to all of us, just to have these licenses. We're not sustainable in terms of covering our wages. We only have 10 staff, but you all know what the average rate in this country is. It's quite expensive to maintain 10 staff, as you can imagine. So we're working under the wholesaling model. So we're working with Tim on the call, Pierre on the call, and other wholesalers around the UK, Micael even, because we work with Advent to have a portfolio of products that we can supply clinics we work with. But we are also importing products, in one of which, I'm like Trisha, and Trisha's products as well, obviously, including the Aurora products we supply. But we're going to have one of our own branded products coming into the UK by the end of this month. It's not going to be it's not going to be grown on British soil, but in terms of the journey to get there, it's a big part of it, and we are pricing it at around just shy of this. Depends on where the pharmacies price it, because I don't price it.
Sorry, excuse me. I thought I was muted there for a second.
It will have an RRP of somewhere around £6 a gram.
Oh, brilliant! Okay,
that's the news patients want to hear. That's brilliant.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
But I don't sell it to you, the patients. I sell it to the pharmacies.
Yes, and pharmacies do have the legal right to charge whatever they want for medications, although we see almost every pharmacy in the UK following RRP and not differing from it in any way. Strictly speaking, they do have the right to charge more if anyone thought that was within their own interest. Okay, so before we throw this to more of an open floor and then tie up for the night, we've got Pierre here from Grow Pharma, who wanted to speak a little bit about the Big Nasty announcement, semi-announcement that's come out so far. Obviously, we've seen Big Nasty on social media hinting at something which is to come through Grow or IPS or Integro. So yeah, Pierre.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily want to speak about it, but I heard there were a lot of questions around it, so I thought I might as well come on. Look, this is pretty simple. Big Nasty, and there are going to be a couple of videos in the next weeks. Big Nasty is a patient, has been a patient for quite a while, has been using cannabis for medicinal purposes for quite a long time. There are some pictures I think it's on ITV, where there's an ITV show where basically the top of his finger falls off because it was rotten and whatever. So he has a lot of nerve damage in that hand. That's why he started taking tramadols, fentanyls, opioids, got constipated. Basically, in his own words, couldn't go to the loo for like 4 months. Decided to go and look at other options, landed at cannabis. Then became a legal patient earlier this year, and now really wants to support that. And more importantly, he has a whole team around him, and these guys know a lot about cannabis. And I mean a lot. That is, they work with Snoop Dogg, they work with loads of other people. One of the guys in his team actually has made or created the nutritional mixes that Snoop Dogg uses for his cannabis in the US. So they actually know a lot about cannabis. So what Big Nasty said is, we know so much about this stuff. We want to help you with the knowledge that we have to bring in and find strains that we believe are the right things for patients, whether it's terpene profiles, THC, mixes, ratios, genetics, whatever. They have contacts and relationships all over the world. They can get whatever they want. It's not going to be snap tomorrow, but it will take some time. But the setup is that he is going to help us, and we're going to help him in that endeavor to find the best possible strains and get those onto the UK market. For him to do that, he wanted to have his own brand. That's all to it. We, as Grower IPS and Integro, will service that need. So we will import the product. Sometimes we need to package it for them. And Claire and I spent a week with the guys in Portugal, visiting facilities, looking at stuff, also letting them understand how things actually work, because they had the same conversation as we're having, or we have been having in the past. What does a medical cannabis facility actually look like? People in hazmat suits and gloves and everything else running around to make sure that the quality is good. So they learned a lot about that, and that's how it's going to work. So they're going to use their knowledge to help us to help you, and it's under his brand.
So Big Nasty has a medical cannabis flower brand that's going to be launching in the UK, and he's going to be doing some kind of QC work for you, where he's looking at potential flowers to enter the UK market in the future and giving some input to grow on that.
I definitely wouldn't call it QC QA, because that's a very official term.
Excuse me.
He is using his knowledge, and his team are using their knowledge to advise us, and we advise them on because that's, I mean, Micael was not, it's not that easy to grow a certain genetic and all of that stuff. You can't flip your fingers and go, it happens like that. So we're basically joining forces in the knowledge that we have to bring the best possible products to the UK. And it's not a money play. Don't expect that Big Nasty medical cannabis suddenly is going to be twice as expensive as everything else on the market. That's not behind it. It's behind what's behind it is bringing good quality product to the market.
Okay, before I ask other people for their questions on this, Pierre, one of the big ones I've seen over the past few days is that patients are concerned that Integro is suddenly going to get swamped with lots of public interest from Big Nasty by association, that, you know, there's going to be a run on the clinic. And, you know, we've seen this before, maybe with Drew and with Medical, etc. Have any safeguards been put into place to make sure that Integro can manage any future increase in demand?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about that with the Big Nasty team before, because obviously there's a mutual interest, but there's also a mutual, if things break down, we both look stupid. So they wanted to be really sure that if there is an increase in demand, we can deal with that. So we've now have 5 what do you call it, patient relations officers. We brought in a few doctors that we loosely were working with, so we brought them back in. So I would not expect that there will be any delays. And if things again go into a funnel and start to, we'll just bring in more people and more doctors. It's a very clear demand in the relationship between the two of us that we will make sure that Big Nasty and his team and the patients that they bring in are not disappointed either. So there's a mutual interest in that.
Right. Thanks, Pierre. So in a minute, I want to ask some questions directly to Trisha and Sonal, who haven't had much of an opportunity to talk in this call. Before we do, does anyone else have any questions for Pierre on that, Sarah?
Yeah, my thing, Pierre, I think the other people have kind of saying what I'm saying in the actual chat, is that with someone like Big Nasty and the kind of people that he has following him, and he's very black market, and he's very, I mean, when I used to follow him, he smoked an ounce a day. So I'm very interested to see what he's prescribed. Unless he has a lot less these days. But my only concern is just illegitimizing it slightly, that we're going to get a lot of people who may not necessarily actually need a medical cannabis prescription thinking, oh, I can get it legally, and Big Nasty's flogging it, so I'll just go sign up with it, anxiety through Integro. And that was my kind of
I get the point. I mean, he's not flogging. The process will be exactly the same process as has been until now. You need to have a confirmed condition. You need to have your GP records, all of these things. I think the important thing to realize, the MHRA, CQC, everybody is watching the cannabis industry. If we F this up, then it's going to be a big backlash for everybody. So we all need to make sure that we do it right. And we cannot afford things to be slipping. I mean, we know from what I've seen from the last CQC inspection at Integro, and it's not just Integro, clinics have been growing quite rapidly over the last, 5-6 months for various reasons, whether it's Drew or different strains or anything else. CQC have been all over the place, demanding patient notes, making sure that doctors are not prescribing too quickly, too easily. Doctors not prescribing without taking proper notes. Doctors are not prescribing silly amounts. All of that stuff. They are really, really hot on this. So it's in everybody's interest to make sure that we do it properly. We cannot. Knowing that we're under the magnifying glass, and so is my Medcan, and so are the others. If you start doing things with influencers or celebrities, it would be the same if Ed Sheeran would do it or whatever. Once the magnifying glass is on there, you need to behave whiter than white to make sure that it works, and we are seriously aware of that.
I think those were very fair remarks, Pierre, and I think you have covered a lot of people's concerns there. It is all about what image does the celebrity bring to medical cannabis, and how will Integro cope with any increased numbers. Kieran's got his hand up. We're going to take this as the very last question on this point before going across to Trisha and Sonal. We've kept them for a long time now, and I really want to ask them some direct questions. So, Kieran.
Cool. So, I don't have a concern who Grow decides to have a working relationship with. Every business has its freedoms to decide which part of the market they want to market to. And I mean that just purely in the sense that, if I'm trying to convince, say, my mother, who has like really bad health conditions, to go to medical cannabis, just because, not recommending it, but just convincing her that it is beneficial to someone like me, she's not going to want to go to this, and that's fine. That's whoever you want to cater to. My issue is what you said with regards to Big Nasty's team. You said they'd worked with people like Snoop Dogg and stuff like that, and that's great. And I think that, there is people in the community that would say they'd probably have a lot more experience than some of the medical professionals. But what are their credentials or kind of authority to be in the kind of medical space?
Fair comment there, Kieran.
Yeah, I am not sure if how can I reply to that? Look, what's the medical there is a little video clip that Big Nasty did on Friday, and what did he say? He basically said, and so you'll probably see it somewhere later this week. Medical cannabis is cannabis, but cleaner, better cultivated, pharmaceutical grade. You know where it comes from, all of that stuff. There is no difference between physically when you look at the plant. There's no difference between a plant that it's grown in a whatever facility or in a pharmaceutical facility, other than the way we do it, what we have to do with it, manufacturing processes, all the regulations around it to make sure that it's clean. So I don't think there is much.
What I'm saying is how do they have the medical knowledge to judge that, other than saying that this medicine works very well from them? It's going by.
Okay, so let me play that back. Let me play that back. How many people here have tried 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 strains before they found the one that worked for them, and have combinations of 2 or 3? It's exactly the same with them. What they will look at is the same things that you've been asking: high terpene profiles, good quality, good taste, THC, CBD, and it doesn't have to be 30% THC. It can be 18% THC. It can be 20% THC. So they just look at exactly the same things that you're looking at. That whole experience with terpenes, whatever else is in the plant. How does it feel? How does it taste? What do the buds look like? How does it end up if you put it through a grinder? All of these things. That's exactly what they are looking at. Completely the same as you would.
Fair remarks again there, Pierre. We've got another hand up from Elliot. Elliot, is your question related to Pierre here?
Well, it's just about the big nasty thing. So
sure, just briefly then, because we do need to move on in a second.
Yeah, no worries. So I've been part of a hydro industry, and I'm aware of Big Nasty and his team. And they've been cultivating for a long time. So I'd say that they're very skilled within the industry. So I'm looking forward to actually seeing the products.
So thanks, Elliot.
Yeah, appreciate the insight there. It's actually great to hear from someone who does have some direct experience with what Big Nasty and his team get onto behind the scenes. Okay, moving forward then, it would be great to ask some questions directly to Trisha and Sonal, who are here from Aurora today. As Trisha clarified earlier, she oversees the UK and Ireland, and Sonal, as the best I'm aware, deals with the clinic and the educational side of things. So if anyone has any direct questions for Trisha, and if not, I have a few of my own. Okay, well, let me start with one then, Trisha. As you stated earlier, production's has moved back now to Canada from Denmark. What was the reasoning for launching a European operation, and then why did you decide to go back to Canada after a couple of years?
Well, there's lots of reasons. Some I wouldn't really be comfortable going into here tonight. But you know, for sure, the patient feedback is hugely important to us. And we were asked by many patients, when could they get product from Canada instead of the Nordic region? So that obviously was something that we weren't comfortable with. And we're an expanding company. We want to have an opportunity. I live here in the UK, so does Sonal. We want to have access for patients. I don't know if you're aware of my background, but I have a medical background. I've worked in the oncology and anesthesia profession for the last almost 30 years. But I'm also a registered nurse. So for me, everything I do has to benefit patients. That's just the way I'm wired.
I appreciate that. And it's great to hear that you come from an extensive medical background before entering the cannabis space, as isn't always the case these days, to be quite honest.
No, and I've been here since before 2018. So Yeah, so this is my fourth or fifth company.
I heard some rumors as well that there was going to be some new flour coming via Aurora, up to 6 apparently. Well, I'm not expecting you to clarify what they are or when they're coming here on this call. Is that rumor correct? Is there more in the pipeline?
We've always got more in the pipeline.
Fair play. And a question based on that. Flowers that are released in the German market, will they always be considered to come to the UK?
So we have a really good system. We have an allocation call every week with the team, and we're told what's being cultivated in Canada, and we make a bid for what we want in our respective countries. For me, it's really important that we listen to the voice of the patients, which is why we're part of the CIC. Both Sonal and I were at the CIC on Thursday. We met and had an opportunity to talk to some great patients there when we were there on Thursday and again on Friday. We do quite a lot with regard to patients anyway, and want to support the voice of the patients. We will be bringing, which we're both really excited about. We have an Aurora Academy within the whole company, and it's very dominant in Canada, but we're going to have our own UK dedicated Aurora Academy, within the next 3 or 4 months. And for that, we will be wanting patient stories. We're reaching out to patients already, and we want to be able to put those onto our website and onto our academy so that patients and doctors can look at the journeys that patients go through to get where they are. And we can really feel and see, the life of a patient and what they have to put up with and what they tolerate before they actually get to medicinal cannabis. That's really important for us. So we sit and we have an allocation call, and we make a bid really for what we want. And for me, I only want to have in the UK a product portfolio that is wanted and requested by patients. Nobody wants to have products sitting on the shelf that isn't sold. We want products that patients want. And that's fulfilled for me. When I sit on that allocation call every week, I know exactly what I'm reaching out for on the shelf.
That's very reassuring to hear. Obviously, at the beginning of the medical cannabis industry, patients felt that the range was extremely lacking, and they didn't feel that their needs were met. And as time's gone on, we've seen more and more cultivars come through, which have been of high interest. And I think Aurora, this is some personal feedback, and excuse me here for giving my opinion, but I think Aurora has done fantastically over the past few months, introducing both the farm gas and sourdough, which quite bluntly are two of the best received medications I've ever seen on the UK market. Barely a bad word said anywhere. It's not the kind of reception we often see from a product which gains such popularity. And specifically with the farm gas, from MedBud's perspective, it has been the most viewed product of all time on our website. And it's great to see. And I'm hoping that future Canadian medications are going to be of the same high quality, because I feel a new standard has been reached now, and it'll be great to see that kept up consistently moving forward.
Well, from a company perspective, that's really nice to hear, and it's great feedback, which I will share. And I do, I listen to patients, and we react to patient feedback on what we bring into the UK. I've been with Aurora now for almost 2 years, and we've made a lot of changes. We've pulled up our socks, and we've listened and talked and listened again, and we'll always want to be a reactive company.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And to ask a question that hasn't been asked yet, but is always the question, will there be any future value ranges from Aurora? Obviously, we saw the Can Value Della Haze quite recently, which was incredibly popular with patients. Are there any other plans for a budget Aurora flower?
Never say never. I think what we've tried to do is we've looked across the whole range of our products. And you will see that in the last 6 months or so, we've really addressed the balance so that there is something in there for everybody. And I've had patients say to me in the last few weeks or months, I really love your product and I can afford it, which is great.
Very much so. Since the original price drop that happened on Aurora from quite a premium price point down to the middle of the market, we've also certainly seen interest increase exponentially. Sarah.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna sneak in just to ask Sonal a quick question, because I know that she's working on the education side of things with doctors and things like that. And I just wondered if she didn't mind explaining what she does a bit to us all.
So I've joined the kind of Aurora just I'm 10 months in now, Sarah. So thanks for including me in the question. Yeah, 10 months in, and from the learning of the last 10 months, especially talking to patient groups like yourself, and both Trisha and I go to a lot of the clinics virtually, speaking to a lot of the healthcare professionals. But the education we're looking at is kind of what's missing. So we're looking at different disease areas. We did a webinar on endometriosis. We're doing one on mental health. We're doing one on pain. So we're looking at kind of the gaps that healthcare professionals and patients are saying. And we've discussed it many times, haven't we, Sarah, about what patient information you need. And I'm very happy to, we're very happy to work with you, Sarah, of the MCPA and other patient groups to see what education and patient leaflets we can help you produce. Like the driving one that the CIC did was a perfect example of what meeting your needs and kind of, how do you get your prescription? Do you need a leaflet on that? How do you vaporize? Do you need a leaflet on that? So kind of helping you with the limited resources we have in Aurora. There's only the two of us here in the UK, so we can try, but yeah, we will keep continuing to kind of move and improve, particularly with the Aurora Academy coming. Hopefully you'll be able to have a first look at that and see how it looks for patients, and how you can help us with the kind of, how do they look, how do the profiles look, how does the education look for the patients.
Thank you.
That's sure. Go on, Sarah.
Sorry, Ralph. No, it's all right. I didn't mean to, but go on.
I was going to say, I'm sure I speak for Sarah too when I say the MCPA will be almost certainly happy to get involved in this education process, and we can put out some calls for feedback and such, the kind of things that Trisha was looking for earlier, the patient testimony, stories of their journeys, etc. I'm sure the MCPA will be happy to help.
Brilliant.
Actually, working on one. Sorry to interrupt you there, Trisha. We're having a meeting this week. Just to organise a few of the project, but the first project that we're working on, it's actually on the website now, but it's not fully live yet, is a patient testimonials and stories. So we'll be doing, we're asking for patients to submit a video up to 5 minutes long, just yourself talking about how medical cannabis has helped you, how you was before and how cannabis has made a difference in your life, and things like that. And we want to actually promote that, edit that forward and then promote that on social media in various different places to actually raise awareness. Because I was talking about this today, there's a lot of clinics that have paying different influencers on Instagram, and I find their adverts so tacky. They make me cringe sometimes. I think Sapphire have a few different influencers on Instagram, and the reaction from most patients is, did you see that advert today? It just made me cringe. That's not really what medical cannabis is. So in my eyes, we need to kind of flood social media with information about medical cannabis, that it's we can get it now, that we as patients exist. And then going on from that, we also are going to do a leaflet, just to start off, just two-sided leaflet, one side that says that medical cannabis is legal now, you can get it, this is what you need to do. And then the reverse, it will be what a current patient can do to prove that they have a legitimate prescription, what they need to do, basically, that there is no need for a card, etc., to reassure current patients on what their current rights are and what they're actually allowed to do. I think it's important to get something out there for patients. They're pretty sharpish, really.
I totally agree, and I think that if we can put patient case stories, like you say, a short 5 or 10 minute summary onto our academy, then it's a real educational tool for other patients, for other people to see, gosh, I have that, I didn't know I could have this, but also as a learning tool for healthcare professionals and for doctors. We don't have that many doctors prescribing. They've got to start somewhere. even if it starts on an Aurora Academy, I'll take that as a positive.
Well said. To best of my knowledge, there's around 150 prescribing specialists right now, catering to 32,000 patients.
Mm.
And those are quite scary numbers when you play it out. I mean, if you scale this industry up by tenfold, we're going to need another, 1,000+ specialists joining, and they need material, which is not just clinical literature, written in semi-legalese. They need some in-depth patient experience from the patient's perspective to understand what works for them. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're nearing the 2-hour mark here. So I'm just going to say, we've just lost Hamish. He's gone to put his little one to bed and whatever. Thanks to him today for joining us. We're going to continue this call for a little longer if everyone's happy. But whoever needs to excuse themselves and let themselves go, we've kept you for 2 hours now. That's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I am going to have to go if that's all right. I'm sorry about that.
It's been a pleasure,
if-
Trisha.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you very
Trisha.
much. Welcome. My pleasure.
And hopefully we'll have you on again some point in the new year.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Sure. Thank you
And
very much.
Same goes to you as well, Sonal.
Thank
Apologies
you.
you haven't had much of a chance to talk
No.
today. There's been a lot of questions about the nitty-gritty of the industry, but that's often the case with these calls. Lots of patients have questions but a lot of clinics and pharmacies who we don't actually have on today too. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna throw it to an open floor maybe for a little bit. I don't know if Sarah has any other plans or things she needs to bring up.
No, it's just basically I've kind of gone through everything I wanted to. I just wanted to obviously mention that we are having that meeting this week with the moderators, and then we can bring up everything that's going on the weekly meeting on Wednesday. So if anyone's got any ideas, they can kind of jump in, with what we're doing with the patient video campaign and also the leaflet as well. But other than that, yeah, just open floor, whatever anyone would like to ask anybody or any questions, just go ahead.
The one remaining point from earlier, which we brought up and said we could address again later, was a 24/7 access line. I've seen pretty much everyone clap along to this idea, metaphorically speaking, whenever it's been raised, be it here or elsewhere. Everyone seems to support the idea of police having somewhere that they can call to get 24-hour support. Obviously, this can't be through individual clinics. We can't expect every single one to staff themselves 24/7, but a collaborative service could really work. We don't have many industry people left on this call right now. If anyone wants to address that point, they can, but otherwise, I'm happy to brainstorm with everyone else here about what this could potentially look like and how we can get clinics to join in and support a kind of cross-industry collaboration on a helpline.
I don't know how we do this, but because you'd have to go through some kind of like safety measures and all that stuff. But what if patients had like a sponsor kind of list for people that were within the community who could act as your kind of advocate when confronted by the police, just in the meantime, if the police are not going to do this, the clinics are not going to do this?
It's not a bad idea, and it could work. I mean, you need some redundancy built into the system, right? You couldn't just have one advocate who might be asleep or whatever else.
Yeah.
You'd almost need a greater support network, but all of that makes me think we should almost push from the beginning to get this action by clinics. Obviously, in the last industry meeting, we had Pierre, who's still here, I believe. We had Asif from Alternaleaf, and we had someone else as well whose name is forgetting me. All agree that they would collaborate, and Nick Pateris from Life Group, sorry, all agree that they would be willing to collaborate on something to help with police education. I think that we have 3 tentative yeses already from these people that they would be willing to support 24/7 a phone line. No, I feel like clinics need something to throw their money at, right? If we can put a proposal in front of them that says this is how this could work, they might sign up. I see Pierre's just popped back on
Yeah,
cam.
can I say something about it? I think I'm very much about proper solutions and not plasters. The issue is that there is a law. The law clearly states if you have your prescription, etc., we discussed that, then the police should identify that and should let you go. The fact that they don't know, we're going to do a helpline and then they're not going to know that the helpline exists. and then you give them the number of the helpline, they're going to go, oh, is this a legal helpline? That doesn't solve the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue will only be solved if we all together, with the training is there, whether CAN card provided or clinic provided, doesn't really matter. They just need to implement it, and they don't implement it because there's no sense of urgency. So what we need to do is create a sense of urgency. So if you get arrested, go and join that initiative that I was talking about earlier, and Alex has mentioned. We'll just take the individual police force to court. And if we get enough cases of it, we'll do a class action. That'll wake them up. Then you don't need a helpline or anything else. They just need to understand that they need to apply the law. So sorry, I'm very principled about this.
Pierre, very well said, though. I mean, it is the pertinent point, right? We shouldn't require a helpline. It is, to some degrees, a bit of a plaster. It's something which has come about because of all the police miseducation so far.
Yeah.
So, I think it was actually our own solicitor, Robert Yappy, who first suggested putting together a class action lawsuit. Against different police forces, and I believe that Alex from Grow Pharma has been doing some further work with him. And am I right, Pierre, in saying that this has some relation to the Guardian news article that came out too?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
These are the kind of things that create that.
Really want to make this work, but solve it at the base, not do a plaster.
Pierre, what would you say to asking the Home Office to issue renewed guidance to all police forces, so that something that could trigger a policy change within all forces? Do you think that's something that has scope?
Yes, but the only thing I would say, look, there's no consequence if they don't do it. With everything that is being issued, whether it's the Home Office or anybody else, if they don't care because it's not a priority, or they don't apply it because people don't follow the training course, then you're still, the effect of that is still going to be not the effect that we want. That's why that court case or anything else, I feel, is a much stronger thing to get things going than doing that. If you make them heard, they'll do it.
You know, I can't help but agree with those comments, Pierre. So to ask a proactive question, how can patients support it? If patients do have a police issue going forward, who do they need to contact in order to kind of add to this public pressure against police forces?
I think was either Alex or Robert or somebody else put a post out recently. I can ask Alex again to post around where to go, who to contact. Because they were actually, I think Robert, I mean, you work with Robert a lot more than I do. I think Robert felt that they actually only needed 6 or 7 cases to make a proper case out of it. So, but then, I think we just need to, I'll have a chat with Robert and with Alex.
Sure. So Alex has just written on the chat. He says, if you or someone you know has been in a negative interaction with the police relating to prescribed cannabis, please message Ralph via the MedPod page. You'll be able to forward it to the right people. Okay, so email me and I'll make sure it hits the right place. They can contact me on social medias, contact Ralph. So you can also contact Alex Fraser via Twitter, via Facebook, etc., etc. But I'm going to have a little brainstorm with Alex off call.
As well, sorry. We can get something pinned in the Discord as well to point people in the right place.
Yeah, I was about to say, so I'm going to go and have a chat with Alex at some point when I can grab him and try and get some proper points of contact put into place so that we have someone to direct all patients to make sure it gets looked at properly. Tim?
Just to say that the Police and Crime Commissioner elections, I am a Democrat. They happen on the 2nd of May 2024. Police and Crime Commissioners direct police policy, so they are the political kind of direction of any chief constable. There's a major element of change that can happen in that election if all of the candidates are challenged on medical cannabis, because if you're arrested, you can then sue for wrongful arrest moving forward, because as it is our duty to know the law, ignorance of the law is not an excuse, so it is for the police as well. So there are, as Pierre says, there are ways, legal routes around how you can make police forces sit up and take notice. But I'm all about the ballot box, and I think that is where one of the major changes. There will be a general election and police and crime commissioner elections next year. That's where you can get real influence moving forward.
Good remarks there, Tim. To the best of my knowledge, there's 32 different police forces across the country, so I assume there will be 32 different local police commissioners. Is that right?
There were 40. One of those is a nuclear.
Right. We've also had a comment in the chat here. I feel like it's more it's more an up-to-date class the police need to do, or should be forced to do, to be updated on modern events. I've not had a single issue in Northern Ireland with the police as of late, or heard of one. They seem to be trained well. So yeah, as many patients say, it's very much a force-specific issue. Some forces are very well up to date on medical cannabis. Patients have been filing freedom of information requests with them. They've had to go and notify or make it public knowledge what their policies are. And on the flip side, we see some forces who are making very egregious claims about checking CAN card as part of their official medical validation process or something like that. And this is the problem right now. Many patients feel like they've got a whack-a-mole kind of solution in front of them, whereby they have to tackle each individual force until patients aren't facing these challenges across the country. Daniel, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, and thanks for everyone from the industry coming on the call. I was thinking about it the last day because me personally coming from the black market, I feel like, or the thought that went through my head was, maybe we should be challenging the police. Maybe we should be people from the black market who have had dealings with the police, because what happened with Sky and other people, it just makes me want to cry, really, that people who have never come from the black market are having to deal with this issue, and it could potentially turn them off. So it was just, obviously no one from industry is going to endorse being kind of confrontational with the police, but it's just something, because obviously we're all here for different reasons and none of us want to deal with the police, but I do feel that patients coming from the black market, we've kind of dealt with that all for years and years and years. So it's even though it's a big issue, it's still something, for me anyway, it's still something that always kind of goes through my mind. I forget, I'm legal, I forget, so that was just my comment. And again, to say thanks to everyone for coming on and chatting with us.
I appreciate the remarks there, Daniel. And I've got to admit, I'm also stuck in that kind of legacy mindset of, oh crap, I'm an illegal user. I'm not. I now have a prescription today, but it's that first thought that goes to my head when I see the police. Yeah, your remarks otherwise, should we be confronting the police? Look, I've got to say no. We shouldn't be if you are not comfortable with the personal risk to yourself. If you don't have dependents, if you don't have dogs or you don't have pets and you can spend the night in the cells if things really go south, then by all means, make an informed decision yourself and take the risk. But for the majority of patients, don't go and, poke a dragon in the back. It just doesn't make sense. Patients could quickly find themselves in a whole lot of hot water that they could have avoided entirely if they weren't confrontational. I agree, police need to be re-educated, but don't put your own freedom at risk. Kieran.
Yeah, I was just going to say the point Daniel made about specifically patients who may not have come from or have had much experience in the black market prior to being a patient. I think it's really important that clinics take that seriously, because even when I've talked to industry before, they're surprised that I had little to no experience with black market before becoming a patient, because I wasn't willing to take that risk. And there are people who won't come on to being a patient because they still feel like they can't take that risk because the legal protection isn't being honored by the police. And that's why I'm just saying it's a really important point that you make, that I think clinics are not making enough effort on this when there is so many patients who have never taken that risk before who still don't want to.
I think that's a fair remark. I mean, a lot of people try and make police education an industry issue because of how it reflects onto the industry, how it creates people reluctant to actually join, seeing that there could still be police issues. But at the same time, what I'm worried about happening is lots of different clinics starting off their own back different attempts to re-educate police forces or the Home Office, etc. Because then there ends up being a very confused and muddled voice going to the police, which just kind of further helps confuse things. I do feel that what we need going forward is some kind of collaborative effort between different corners of the industry so that there can be one very loud voice going to the police over what they need to do. And yeah, again, that's not fragmented at all. Does anyone else have any questions or remarks about this? We have been in this for 2 hours now, so we're at the point where we're quite willing to draw the meeting to a close.
Yeah, I think we all are. But with stuff like that, what I was just going to add on is that anything like that, with collaboratively, we should, we could all come together and do it through the MCPA. Like, we want to do this, the YouTube kind of awareness campaign with videos, and then the kind of leaflet for awareness. And we do want one side of that to be kind of educational, maybe for police or something like that, so I just think instead of us all being fragmented, we were all coming together here tonight to, for the MCPA. So we should all come together and do something proactively.
Yeah, well said. And beyond that, the MCPA, MedBud, pretty much everyone from the industry who's been on the call tonight has been a member of the Cannabis Industry Council as well. While I'll be the first to say they're a bit of a slow revolving ball, it's very hard to kind of push it and make it change direction at times. They certainly have the most well accepted processes, policies, structure in place to launch a collaborative effort. So this is something that perhaps should be done in association with the CIC and the MCPA. MedBud will, obviously happily back anything that happens as well, but to try and make sure that all different corners of the industry get behind the same efforts to re-educate the police, because I think that's key to solving this moving forward.
I'm sorry to really butt in here. I'm gonna speak to Georgia on Thursday. Georgia Emerson, sorry. I was gonna specifically ask if possible to get a hold of Dr. Tang's even just like maybe the slides or something that we could reference or something to look at. And then I think that might be interesting to pour over, even if it was something that I don't know, if like you say, we need a uniform education for the police, but it would be good to educate ourselves on what is being told to the police.
Yeah, that's a great point. So for those unaware, Dr. David Tang, who's the medical director of Georgia Emerson Center, recently put on a seminar for 3 different police forces all at once, if I remember correctly. And Kieran here saying that we should see what was in that presentation. It looked like a PowerPoint slide from the images that have been released. So we need to see what's there, and then hopefully that could inform a greater kind of uniform education campaign. Kieran, it's probably worth chatting to Karen Gray, the patient lead there at Georgia.
That's who I'm having a call with on Thursday. Okay,
perfect. Well, hopefully we'll hear more on Thursday then. Okay, so before we close this off for the night, does anyone else have any points they want to raise? Ask any questions? Going once? Going twice? Okay, all right, well, let's close this off then for the night. The next industry meeting will be on, let me just pull open my calendar, sorry. It will be on the 4th of December at 6 p.m. again. So far, we've had Gabriel Newman, the CEO of Cantarage, and John Robson, the CEO of Medica, agreed to come on. We're going to have a maximum of 5 guests. We don't know what the rest of the lineup looks like yet, but we're going to have a new rule coming in that guests can only take part twice every 4 months, just to make sure we don't get the same guests every month. So yeah, there'll be another 3 guests that are going to be announced for the next meeting, hopefully over the next week or 2. Details will be on the MCPA Discord, on our Twitter, on our Facebook page, etc. Sarah?
Just to jump in, we've got the vape and chill on Friday. Oh, sorry, on Friday at 2 p.m. Just to let people know that we have like just a chill vape session, as well as our weekly meeting at 6 for people to just relax, take the medication, and just, you don't have to talk. You can just socialize for an hour or so. But yeah, I'll pass
So
it
we
back.
have, yeah, we've got the patient weekly meeting coming up on Wednesday at 6 p.m. and then we have the vape and chill session on Friday at 2 p.m. And the Discord links for both are in the MCPA Discord, and we'll obviously notify people publicly too.
Sorry, and on the website, I was just going to say.
Yeah, and on the website too. So I forget all the places that I need to signpost people to. Yes, Stuart, there is a Discord. Someone will hopefully kindly post you an invite link in the chat momentarily.
I will go and do that. Just bear with me a moment. You keep people talking while I fumble my way around.
What, you mean I've got to say more? I've been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes here, Sarah. I haven't got anything else to say.
Right, okay. Discord link. I just want to
Yeah,
post
okay, yeah. So a question from No Perception, which wasn't answered earlier. If we have anyone from the industry here who would quickly like to answer. Cryo curing involves freezing bud soon after it's first cultivated, which allegedly preserves more terpenes than most other curing processes. Is there any scope for introducing this in the UK cannabis space whatsoever? And I guess this question goes to Tim, if he's willing. No, I'm not sure if it,
yeah, with we are looking at it. It's one of these things that is very popular in all kinds of other territories, but it's regulation, obviously. You have to jump through a lot of hoops to get medical cannabis into this country, so that's what we're trying to do. So it will almost certainly happen. How long it will take, I don't know.
A question based off that, Tim. Are you aware of any reason that there would be regulatory differences for cryo-cured cannabis? I mean, surely it should just have to ascribe to the same monographs as current flower does, right? And theoretically, cryo-curing shouldn't affect that.
So what happens? I mean, the detail of what you have to do is phenomenal, but you have to create a supply chain map. So effectively, the MHRA know where it's grown, who processes it, where it goes. Each one of those individual events needs to have a certification that goes with it. So GACP growing to GMP all the way through. So finding somebody who's got, I'm remembering most of this is done in Canada, where EU GMP is not the standard. The Canadians develop their own standards for their cannabis industry that the world hasn't adopted. Everybody's gone for medical cannabis with EU GMP certification. Not many companies have that, so you have to find somebody who's got that, somebody who wants to export. Remembering that Canada, when we talk about importing medical cannabis into the country, we import 30 to 40 kilos at a time. The Canadians see that as the bits that drop off the edge of their table when they're actually processing cannabis.
Tim,
so
do not tell
we're
patients that. They make that
insignificant.
claim too often already.
Well, we're insignificant compared to Canada at the moment. That will change, obviously, as we develop forward. As you said, 32,000 patients. Well, within inside of my postcode, there's probably that many people. So we're not that substantial as of yet. Once we move forward, and we're very much following the Australian trajectory, and you reach 300,000 patients, then you have momentum, then you can start to move things forward, because the Canadian companies actually start listening to you. As we import 20 to 30 kilos, they import 100 to 150 kilos, and that makes a substantial difference. So effectively, the thing to take away from this is go out and tell everybody about medical cannabis, because accessing it, the more people who access it, the easier it will become, and the more the regulators become comfortable with. And that's exactly what happened in Australia. The TGA has become a lot more comfortable with medical cannabis moving forward. So it's in our hands, really. We are all advocates moving forward and feel empowered. You've got professors, doctors, the highest level doctors, consultants, all saying cannabis interacts with your endocannabinoid system, and is a very useful medicine. And I still get this. You've still got confirmation of bias from people who go, "Oh, cannabis, that gives you psychosis." It is the nature that we have to deal with that confirmation of bias, but the science is actually on our side moving forward. So that's what I'd say about kind of the bigger we are, the more we'll have these capabilities to get better medications moving forward with different processes. And it's all about working with the regulators.
Very well said, Tim. And the point that went unsaid there is the bigger this industry gets, the cheaper it gets for patients too.
Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
that's
Yes.
the bottom line
Yeah.
for most patients right now.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
I'm just going to jump in, Ralph, and just say, obviously, you know, on that point, I've already updated the MCPA website. It's just www. I put it into the chat. .mcpa.uk. If you go there, if any patients want to get involved and do these 5-minute video clip instructions, and everything is on their website. And I really would love for everyone to get involved. I'm going to do mine this week and upload it for everyone to see as an example, because I don't mind sharing my story. I'll put my mug on YouTube or whatever, wherever it needs to go, scare everyone off cannabis forever. But I think that's the way to go, to raise awareness so that there is more patients, so there's more momentum, so that we have more say. And that's the thing, you know, the way that we need to go. So please go to the website and do your testimonials and how cannabis has helped you. Thank you.
Very well said, Sarah. Rachel, do you have a hand up?
Yeah, sorry, just on that, thank you to everybody. I'm learning so much. I'm only a month into this, so yeah, I'm learning loads, so thank you. But just on that, Sarah, would it be possible to maybe do a patient story, but do it without showing a face, like do it anonymously, or is that possible?
Yep, of course. You don't have to turn your camera on. You can just do an audio clip. That's totally fine.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that's a great note to end things on today, guys. If anyone here is willing to share their story as a patient, how cannabis has helped them, join the Discord, check our website, etc. Not only will it help the MCPA, it will hopefully help inform Aurora's new patient portal, attracting new doctors to the space, etc., etc. As Tim just said, the more of us, the merrier. Prices come down, there's power in numbers. We're able to push around regulations a little bit with, you know, the power of a greater voice. So yeah, please do get involved if you can. Otherwise, thank you to all who have taken part today. Thank you to all of our guests. Special thanks to Tim for sticking around to the end. It's been a very long one.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, Sarah, any last remarks?
No, that's it. I just want to say, everyone, thank you for everyone for coming. I know everyone's more or less left now, but I think it's been a really good meeting, and I really do look forward to the next industry rep meeting. I think it's really informative for patients and the industry alike, really. So thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
Aye, indeed. So the video will be out, Sarah, in the next couple of days. Is that right, on YouTube?
I've just got it will encode overnight, and I'll upload it to YouTube in the morning. I will put the link on the website, on the Discord, and I'll post it to Reddit where I'm allowed.
Sure thing, and we'll make sure it's on all the MCPA social media pages too. So yeah, finally, once again, thanks for everyone for joining us tonight, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.